Vote defence stand part of the schedules. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that vote defence force stand part of the schedules.
Mr. Chairman.
Phil Goff.
Mr. Chairman, 8 months ago, the Cabinet External Relations and Defence Committee produced this minute. I've got it in my hands. It's been kept secret and confidential until such time as the government was forced to reveal it under the Official Information Act. Why was it kept secret? Because it reveals this point, Mr. Chairman, and I quote, "New Zealand now has the smallest number of personnel deployed to international peacekeeping operations in almost 20 years. The number of people, New Zealand men and women who are superb peacekeepers, that we have deployed today is 77. Just 77. When I was Minister of Foreign Affairs and Defence, it numbered up to 800 and was generally in the 300 to 500 category. And this minute, in its last point, urges the government to take an active approach to considering contributions to international peace support operations. Well, why? Well, firstly, it's the right thing to do for New Zealand as a good international citizen, but also New Zealand is putting itself up to be a candidate for the United Nations Security Council. And what do we say about our good international citizenship? That the best we can mount to help international peacekeeping operations is 77. And I wondered about this because I know the government, from this minute, wanted to have more people out in the field. So why didn't they? Well, the answer was given in the estimates questionnaire, where I asked the question about deploying overseas. And you know what the Minister tells me? He says there's a risk that you couldn't deploy New Zealand service personnel overseas in a peacekeeping operation for more than 12 months. For 9 years, we had 400 to 500 people deployed on these sort of peace missions, Minister, and you have run down the Defence Force to the point that we cannot have our very good peacekeepers deployed for more than 1 year. Mr. Speaker, that is a disgrace. One reason, and this comes out of the Auditor General's comments on the Minister's handling of his portfolio. It says between 2009 and 2013, the number of regular force numbers have been slashed by 1,200. That's 15%, a 15% reduction in our Defence Force personnel. But it's worse than that, Mr. Chairman. It's worse than that because when that Minister did what the Auditor General accused him of doing, breaking the social contract with the Defence Force personnel, we reached 24% attrition in the Defence Force. 24% in vital trades and in vital ranks. And it takes years, 7 to 8 years, to replace people with the skills of those that walked away from the Defence Force. That's why our Defence Force can't mount a decent peacekeeping operation, because that Minister, by destroying the morale of the Defence Force in 2011 and 12, and by cutting the budget for the Defence Force for personnel, has reduced it to the point that it can't deploy for more than a year. But it's not simply that, Mr. Speaker. There has been botch-up after botch-up. And what I want the Minister, when he gets to his feet, to comment on was why the Army court-martialled a brave Special Air Service soldier who had served in Bosnia and served 3 times in Afghanistan for stealing Army equipment when they couldn't find any equipment missing. Couldn't find any equipment missing. And that has just been overturned by the Military Court of Appeal.
There's a point of order. The Honourable Dr. Jonathan Coleman.
That matter is still before the courts, and it's best not to refer to it. There's still...
Speaking to the point of order, Mr. Speaker. Speaking to the point of order, Mr. Chairman.
I'll hear the Honourable.
Mr. Chairman, I was past the Court of Appeal, Military Court of Appeal decision from the court by a party to the court because the suppression order has been listed. It is in the public arena, right. However much the Minister might try to suppress it.
Look, I will need to seek some guidance on this. I don't have the answer, and I'll ask for some guidance from the clerk. No, I need to seek some guidance on this matter.
I mean, I think he's going to do.
I'm informed that that 3 of the 4 charges were dropped, but there is still one that hasn't. So, on that basis, I'd ask the member to move on Defence Force, and we'll leave that matter as it is. So, Honourable Filgoff.
Speaking to the point of order, Mr. Chairman, the 4th charge was not appealed by the soldier concerned, though the Military Court of Appeal said that the Army should consider withdrawing it. But this matter is not live before the court. It's not under a suppression order.
Okay, well, look, just give me 1 moment while I just make sure I've got my advice correct. Just 1 moment. All right, I have some advice, and the advice is that we can continue in the same vein. The Honourable Filgoff.
Well, I'd like the Minister to explain to the House why the Army court-martialled a soldier for the theft of equipment that wasn't missing. Because the Minister will know that that soldier spent $15,000 of his own money in buying equipment, and it may well be that he passed back his own equipment and sold equipment that was the Army equipment. But there was no intent of theft, and the Military Court of Appeal damned the judgment that had been made in the first instance. And what I want to know is, do we have so many brave and experienced SAS soldiers that we can court-martial them, effectively humiliate them and drum them out of the military, only to find that that military court in the first instance got it wrong? That was a botch-up. Second botch-up. Why is it that people working full-time for the Air Force at Whenuapai can set up a private company and tender for the equipment that they're working full-time on? And why is it that that matter is before the Auditor-General? That is another scandal waiting, Mr. Chairman. The third thing is Babcock's. Why did Babcock's, in its performance indication indicators, hit the lowest level, 5 out of 5, that reads designated unacceptable for 6 months? Why is it that the Defence Force is doing so badly that they are having these problems?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Dr. Jonathan Coleman.
Mr. Chair, well, looking to what we've just heard, both from the NZ First Member and Phil Goff, you know, you wouldn't believe that there's